The planet Vetra loomed large and imposing, its triple moons casting ghostly shadows across the alien landscape. The sky was a blend of deep purples and crimson, a stark contrast to the azure skies of Earth. Dr. Elisa Ramirez stood at the observation deck, her eyes scanning the horizon. The colony, a sprawling network of domed habitats and underground facilities, was humanity's last hope. Elisa had been chosen for her expertise in astrophysics and her calm, resolute demeanor. Her journey from Earth to Vetra had been long and arduous, filled with countless challenges. Now, as the leader of this fragile colony, she felt the weight of responsibility more than ever. The harsh environment of Vetra was unforgiving, with its extreme climates and toxic atmosphere. The colony's life support systems were a marvel of engineering, but they required constant maintenance and oversight. Walking through the main habitat, Elisa greeted the colonists, each a crucial part of the colony's survival. Captain Mark Holloway, the head of security, was a stern figure who had his doubts about Elisa's leadership but was fiercely loyal to the colony's survival. Dr. Lena Kim, the biologist, was absorbed in her research, hoping to unlock the secrets of Vetra's ecosystem. Then there was Ethan Blake, the rebellious engineer whose confrontational nature often put him at odds with Elisa. The daily routine was a delicate balance of managing resources, ensuring safety, and maintaining morale. Elisa knew that any mistake could spell disaster. The colonists were resilient, but the underlying tension was palpable. As she made her rounds, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go terribly wrong. In the evening, Elisa convened a meeting with her key staff. The main topic was the recent spike in electrical surges affecting the colony's power grid. "We need to address this immediately," Elisa stated, her tone leaving no room for argument. "If the power fails, we won't survive." Mark nodded, his expression grim. "I've already doubled the security patrols around the power stations. We need to ensure there's no foul play." Lena added, "I've been analyzing the data, and it seems these surges are not just random. There's a pattern." Ethan leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "If there's a pattern, it means someone or something is causing it. We need to find out who or what it is before it cripples us." The meeting ended with a sense of urgency. Elisa walked back to her quarters, her mind racing with possibilities. The colony's future depended on their ability to work together and overcome these challenges. She had to keep everyone focused and united, despite the growing tensions. As she lay down to sleep, the image of Vetra's triple moons lingered in her mind, a reminder of the alien world they now called home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Elisa was determined to face them head-on. The survival of humanity depended on it. The harsh buzz of the emergency alarms jolted Elisa from her sleep. She was on her feet instantly, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Grabbing her communicator, she barked into it, "Status report." "Life support systems are failing in Habitat 3, Mark's voice crackled back, tense and urgent. "We're losing oxygen fast." Elisa raced through the dimly lit corridors, the rhythmic thrum of the colony's machinery pounding in her ears. Colonists were emerging from their quarters, eyes wide with fear. She reached Habitat 3, where a team of engineers and security personnel were already at work. The air was thin, and a faint hiss signaled a breach. Ethan Blake was in the thick of it, his face set in a determined scowl. "We've isolated the leak, but the damage is extensive. It's going to take time to fix this." "How did this happen?" Elisa demanded, scanning the scene. The life support system was a sophisticated network of filters and scrubbers designed to keep the colony habitable. For it to fail so catastrophically, something had to be seriously wrong. Ethan shook his head. "It looks like sabotage. Someone knew exactly where to hit us." The word hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Sabotage. Elisa's mind raced. Who among them could be capable of such a betrayal? And why? "We need to focus on repairs," she said, forcing herself to remain calm. "Ethan, do whatever it takes to get the system back online. Mark, increase patrols and start an investigation. I want to know who's behind this." Hours passed in a blur of activity. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair the damage, while Mark's security team scoured the colony for clues. Elisa moved between habitats, reassuring the colonists and keeping everyone focused. The fear and uncertainty were palpable, but they had to stay strong. By dawn, the immediate crisis was under control. The life support system was patched up and operational, though it would take time for oxygen levels to fully stabilize. Exhausted, Elisa called another meeting with her key staff. "Someone tried to kill us," she began, looking each of them in the eye. "We need to find out who and why. Lena, what can you tell us about the pattern you noticed?" Lena, pale and visibly shaken, pulled up a series of data on her tablet. "The electrical surges we've been experiencing follow a specific sequence, almost like a code. Whoever is behind this knows our systems inside out." Ethan's expression darkened. "We need to look inward. There's no way an outsider could have done this." Mark nodded in agreement. "I've already started questioning the staff, but so far, no one's admitted to anything suspicious. We might need to dig deeper." Elisa felt a wave of frustration. The colony was already struggling with external threats, and now this internal betrayal threatened to tear them apart. "Keep digging. We can't afford to have a saboteur in our midst." The meeting ended on a somber note. Elisa returned to her quarters, her thoughts heavy with the day's events. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The colony's survival depended on finding the traitor and restoring trust among the colonists. As she stared out at the alien landscape, Elisa vowed to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The colony had barely begun to recover from the sabotage when the next disaster struck. It was early morning, and Elisa was in her office reviewing the latest reports when the alarms blared again, this time louder and more insistent. Her communicator buzzed to life with Mark's voice, tense and urgent. "Elisa, we've got incoming. The sensors have detected a large group of native creatures approaching the perimeter. They're moving fast." Elisa's heart skipped a beat. The native species of Vetra were typically reclusive, but they had grown increasingly aggressive since the human arrival. She grabbed her gear and raced to the control center, her mind racing with possibilities. The control center was a hive of activity. Engineers and security personnel were glued to their monitors, tracking the movement of the creatures. The main screen displayed a swarm of red dots converging on the colony's eastern border. "How many?" Elisa demanded as she entered the room. "Too many," Mark replied grimly. "We've never seen them this organized before. It looks like a coordinated attack." Elisa took a deep breath. "All right, let's not panic. Mark, get your team ready. We need to defend the perimeter at all costs." "Lena, any insights into their behavior?" Lena, who had been closely studying Vetra's fauna, shook her head, her expression worried. "I've never seen them act like this. It's almost like they're being driven by something, or someone." The thought of a possible connection between the sabotage and the attack sent a chill down Elisa's spine. There was no time to dwell on it now. "We need to focus on the immediate threat. Mark, get everyone armed and ready. I'll coordinate from here." The next few minutes were a blur of preparation. The colony's defenses, a mix of automated turrets and manually operated weapons, were activated. Colonists took their positions, the tension palpable. The first wave hit hard. The creatures, resembling a nightmarish blend of insects and reptiles, surged against the colony's barriers. The turrets blazed to life, cutting down the attackers in a hail of bullets and laser fire. But the creatures kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Elisa coordinated the defense with precision, her voice calm and steady over the comms. "Focus fire on the breaches. Keep them away from the main habitats." Mark led the ground defense, his team fighting valiantly to repel the invaders. Despite their best efforts, the sheer number of creatures began to overwhelm them. The perimeter was breached in several places, and the fight became a desperate struggle to protect the colony's core. "Ethan, I need more power to the turrets." Elisa shouted into her communicator. Ethan's voice crackled back, strained. "I'm rerouting everything we've got, but it's not going to hold for long. The battle raged on, with casualties mounting on both sides. The air was filled with the sounds of gunfire, screeches, and the acrid smell of burning flesh. Elisa watched the monitors, her heart pounding. They couldn't hold out much longer. Just when it seemed the defenses would collapse, a new sound cut through the chaos, a high-pitched, rhythmic chant. Elisa looked up to see Zara, the native alien she had met earlier, standing on a nearby ridge. Beside her, a group of her kind began to chant in unison. The attacking creatures hesitated, then slowly began to retreat. The coordinated attack dissolved into chaos as the creatures scattered, fleeing back into the wilderness. Elisa let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Stand down. Let's get the wounded to medical and assess the damage." As the dust settled, Elisa approached Zara, who had descended from the ridge. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You saved us." Zara nodded solemnly. "The creatures are driven by instinct and fear. They sensed your weakness and attacked. But we are not all your enemies." Elisa realized that Zara and her people could be valuable allies. The challenge now was to build trust and cooperation, to ensure the survival of the colony on this hostile world. The aftermath of the attack left the colony in a state of cautious relief. Repairs were underway, and the medical team worked tirelessly to tend to the wounded. Elisa walked through the corridors, assessing the damage and offering words of encouragement to the colonists. The immediate danger had passed, but the underlying issues remained. In the control center, Mark was already deep into his investigation. He looked up as Elisa entered, his expression grim. "We've secured the perimeter for now, but we need to find out who sabotaged our systems." Elisa nodded, joining him at the main console. "Any leads?" Mark gestured to the screens filled with data. "We've found traces of tampering in the life support systems and the power grid. Whoever did this knows our technology inside and out." Ethan entered the room, his usual defiance tempered by exhaustion. "I've checked the systems. It's sophisticated work, not something an outsider could manage easily. We need to look at our own people." Elisa frowned, the weight of suspicion heavy on her shoulders. "I can't believe someone from our colony would betray us like this." Mark's voice was firm. "We have to consider every possibility. I've already started questioning the staff, but we need to dig deeper." Lena arrived with her data tablet, her face pale. "I've analyzed the patterns in the electrical surges. They form a sequence, almost like a code. It's deliberate." Elisa studied the data, her mind racing. "We need to identify who had access to these systems and when. Narrow down our list of suspects." Hours turned into days as the investigation progressed. Mark's team conducted thorough interviews, while Elisa reviewed security footage and system logs. The colony was on edge, the sense of mistrust growing. Late one night, as Elisa pored over the logs in her quarters, a knock at the door startled her. It was Lena, looking anxious. "I think I found something," Lena said, handing her tablet to Elisa. "The surges coincide with specific shifts. It narrows down the suspects to a handful of people." Elisa scanned the list, her heart sinking as she recognized some of the names. Good, hard-working people she had come to rely on. "We need to handle this carefully. If we accuse the wrong person, it could tear the colony apart." Lena nodded. "I understand. But we can't ignore this." Elisa took a deep breath. "I'll call a meeting with the suspects. We need to get to the bottom of this." The following day, Elisa gathered the small group in a secure room. Mark stood by her side, his presence reassuring. The suspects looked nervous, aware of the gravity of the situation. Elisa began, her voice calm but firm. "We've discovered evidence of sabotage. The data points to someone within this group. We're not here to accuse anyone without proof, but we need to know the truth." She laid out the evidence, the patterns in the electrical surges, and the access logs. The room was silent, tension thick in the air. One of the engineers, a young woman named Sarah, broke the silence. I swear I didn't do anything. I followed all protocols. A technician, Greg, looked equally anxious. I was only following orders. I have no idea how any of this happened. As the questioning continued, Elisa watched their reactions closely. She needed to find the saboteur, but more importantly, she needed to restore trust within the colony. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. One of the suspects, an older engineer named Paul, hesitated under questioning. His story didn't quite add up, and small inconsistencies began to emerge. Elisa pressed him gently. "Paul, we need the truth. Lives are at stake." Paul finally broke down, tears in his eyes. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was coerced. They threatened my family back on Earth." Elisa's heart sank. "Who threatened you? Why?" Paul shook his head. "I don't know who they are. They contacted me through anonymous messages, told me to sabotage the systems or my family would suffer." The room fell silent. Elisa knew this was only part of the truth, but it was a start. They had found the saboteur, but the threat was far from over. "Thank you for your honesty, Paul," Elisa said softly. "We'll protect your family. But we need to stop this from happening again." As the meeting concluded, Elisa felt a mix of relief and apprehension. They had taken a crucial step, but the colony was still vulnerable. She had to strengthen their defenses and find a way to unite her people. With the saboteur identified, the colony should have felt a sense of relief. Instead, the revelation of Paul's coercion stirred deeper fears and distrust. As repairs continued, the tension among the colonists grew more palpable. Elisa knew she had to address the issue head-on. She called for a colony-wide assembly in the central dome. The atmosphere was thick with unease as the colonists gathered, murmuring amongst themselves. Standing on the makeshift stage, Elisa took a deep breath. "I know these past few days have been incredibly challenging for all of us," she began, her voice echoing through the dome. "We've faced sabotage, attacks, and loss. But we've also shown resilience and strength." She paused, meeting the eyes of those gathered. "Paul was coerced into sabotaging our systems. His actions, while wrong, were driven by threats to his family back on Earth. This colony was built on trust and cooperation, and we cannot let fear tear us apart." Ethan Blake, standing at the back, crossed his arms, his face a mask of skepticism. "So what's the plan, Elisa? How do we move forward when we can't trust our own?" Elisa met his gaze steadily. "We start by addressing our security and communication protocols. We ensure no one can be coerced like Paul was again. And we work to rebuild the trust that has been damaged." Captain Mark Holloway stepped forward. "We've already started enhancing our security measures. But we also need to remember that our greatest strength lies in our unity." The murmurs grew louder, and a voice from the crowd called out, "What about the attacks? How do we protect ourselves from them?" Lena Kim, the biologist, joined Elisa on stage. "We've learned a lot from Zara and her people. We need to understand that not all the native species are our enemies. Diplomacy and mutual respect can go a long way." The assembly ended on a note of cautious optimism, but Elisa knew the road ahead would be difficult. As the colonists dispersed, she noticed Ethan lingering behind. He approached her, his expression guarded. "You are putting a lot of faith in these aliens and in the colony's ability to bounce back. But what if it's not enough?" Elisa sighed. "I don't have all the answers, Ethan. But I do know that fear and division will destroy us faster than any external threat. We have to believe in our ability to adapt and overcome." Ethan nodded slowly, but Elisa could see the doubt in his eyes. "Just be careful, Elisa. Not everyone shares your optimism." The following days were a blur of activity. Security was tightened, and new protocols were implemented to prevent further sabotage. Elisa worked closely with Zara, learning more about the native species and their behaviors. Zara's insight proved invaluable, helping the colony to better prepare for potential threats. Meanwhile, Ethan's faction grew more vocal. They believed that the colony's current path was unsustainable and pushed for more drastic measures to ensure survival. Elisa found herself constantly mediating disputes and trying to keep the peace. One evening, as Elisa was reviewing the latest security reports in her quarters, Mark knocked and entered, his face etched with concern. "We've got another problem," he said, handing her a data pad. "Ethan's group is planning something. We've intercepted communications suggesting they might be preparing to take matters into their own hands." Elisa's heart sank. "We can't afford more division. If they act out, it could be disastrous." Mark nodded. "I know. We need to talk to Ethan, see if we can bring him back to the table." Elisa agreed. "Set up a meeting. We need to address this before it escalates." The next day, Elisa met with Ethan and his key supporters in a secure room. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with unspoken accusations and mistrust. "Ethan," Elisa began, choosing her words carefully, "we all want the same thing, the survival of this colony. But we need to work together. Acting independently will only weaken us." Ethan's eyes flashed with anger. "Working together hasn't exactly kept us safe so far, has it? We need stronger measures, more aggressive tactics." Elisa held up a hand. "I understand your frustration, but drastic actions can lead to unintended consequences. We need to find a balance." The discussion was heated, with both sides presenting their arguments passionately. In the end, a fragile truce was established. Ethan agreed to halt any independent actions, and Elisa promised to consider more proactive defense strategies. As the meeting concluded, Elisa felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The colony was still on edge, but at least for now, the immediate threat of internal conflict was averted. With the internal strife temporarily quelled, Elisa shifted her focus to establishing a more stable relationship with the native species. She knew that understanding and diplomacy were crucial for the colony's long-term survival. Zara had proven to be a valuable ally, and Elisa hoped to build on that foundation. Elisa organized a meeting with Zara and a few other native representatives. The setting was a neutral zone just outside the colony's main habitat, where they had previously established a small, protected area for such gatherings. The twilight sky, painted in hues of purple and red, provided a surreal backdrop as they gathered. "Thank you for coming," Elisa began, addressing Zara and the others through a translator device. "We need to understand each other better if we are to coexist on this planet." Zara nodded, her eyes reflecting a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Your people have brought many changes. Some fear you, but others see potential for mutual benefit." Elisa appreciated Zara's directness. "We have faced many challenges, both from your world and within our colony. But I believe we can find common ground. We need your help to understand the creatures that attacked us and how we can avoid future conflicts." One of Zara's companions, a stern-looking elder, spoke up. "The creatures are driven by instinct and territory. They attack because they feel threatened. If we can establish boundaries and communicate these effectively, it might reduce their aggression." Elisa nodded thoughtfully. "We can work on setting up clearer boundaries. But what about those who continue to see us as invaders? How do we address their fears?" Zara and the elder exchanged glances. "It will take time," Zara said. "Trust is not built overnight. We must continue to show that we are not here to conquer, but to coexist." The discussion continued, with both sides sharing knowledge and proposing solutions. Elisa learned more about the native flora and fauna, including potential resources that could benefit the colony. In return, she offered insights into human technology and how it could be adapted to protect both the colony and the native species. After the meeting, Elisa felt a renewed sense of hope. They had taken the first steps toward a more peaceful coexistence. However, she knew that implementing these plans would require careful coordination and ongoing dialogue. Back at the colony, Elisa convened her key staff to share the outcomes of the meeting. Mark, Lena, and even Ethan attended, each bringing their unique perspectives to the table. We've agreed to establish clearer boundaries and work on better communication with the native species, Elisa explained. This includes sharing technology and knowledge to benefit both sides. Mark nodded. It sounds promising, but we need to ensure our defenses remain strong. We can't afford to let our guard down. Lena added, I've started cataloging the native plants and their potential uses. Some of them have medicinal properties that could be incredibly valuable. Ethan, who had been quiet, finally spoke up. And what about the security risks? Sharing our technology could make us vulnerable. Elisa met his gaze. It's a calculated risk, but the benefits outweigh the dangers. We need allies, not enemies. This cooperation could be the key to our survival. The meeting ended with cautious optimism. Elisa assigned teams to work on the various aspects of their new diplomatic efforts, ensuring that every step was carefully planned and executed. Over the next few weeks, progress was steady. The colony's boundaries were clearly marked with both human and native symbols, a sign of their growing partnership. Regular meetings with Zara and her people helped to resolve conflicts and build trust. One evening, as Elisa was walking the perimeter, she encountered Zara. They had developed a tentative friendship, bound by their mutual desire for peace. Things are changing, Zara said, looking out over the landscape. Your people are learning, and so are we. Elisa nodded. It's not easy, but it's necessary. We both have much to gain from this partnership. Zara smiled faintly. Trust is the first step. Actions will follow. As the sun set behind the alien horizon, casting long shadows across the colony, Elisa felt a sense of accomplishment. They were far from solving all their problems, but they were on the right path. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to hope that they could truly make Vetra a new home. The days following the initial diplomatic efforts were a blend of cautious optimism and relentless vigilance. The colony was slowly starting to stabilize, but the memory of the last attack lingered, keeping everyone on edge. It was early morning when the alarms blared again, jarring everyone from their sleep. Elisa, already dressed and reviewing reports in her quarters, grabbed her communicator. What's happening? Mark's voice came through, tense and hurried. We've got movement, lots of it. The creatures are back, and they're attacking from multiple directions this time. Elisa's heart sank. They had hoped the recent efforts would prevent another attack, but it seemed their challenges were far from over. She raced to the control center, where the monitors showed red dots converging on the colony from all sides. We're being surrounded, Ethan said grimly, his eyes fixed on the screens. This is different from before. They're more coordinated. Elisa quickly assessed the situation. We need to split our defenses. Mark, take your team to the west perimeter. Ethan, handle the east. I'll coordinate from here and support where needed. As Mark and Ethan mobilized their teams, Elisa activated the colony's defensive turrets and readied the medical units. The air was thick with tension as the first wave of creatures hit the perimeter. The battle was fierce. The creatures, larger and more aggressive than before, attacked with a ferocity that left even the seasoned fighters struggling to hold their ground. Elisa watched the feeds, issuing commands and making split-second decisions to keep the defenses from being overwhelmed. Focus fire on the largest groups, she ordered. We need to break their formation. The turrets blazed to life, cutting down the attackers in a hail of bullets and laser fire. Despite their efforts, the creatures kept coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Ethan, we need more power to the east turrets. Elisa shouted into her communicator. Ethan's voice crackled back, strained. I'm rerouting everything we've got, but it's not going to hold for long. The battle raged on, and casualties mounted. The colony's defenses were stretched to their limits, and it seemed only a matter of time before they would be breached. Just when it seemed the situation was hopeless, Zara appeared at the edge of the control center, flanked by a group of her people. We can help, she said, her voice calm and steady amidst the chaos. Elisa didn't hesitate. Anything you can do, please. Zara nodded and began chanting in her native language, her people joining in. The sound was eerie and rhythmic, cutting through the noise of battle. As they chanted, the attacking creatures began to falter, their coordinated assault breaking down into confusion. "What's happening?" Mark's voice came through, filled with awe. "The chant," Elisa replied, watching in amazement. "It's affecting them somehow." The creatures began to retreat, their fear and confusion driving them back. Within minutes, the attack had subsided, the once ferocious attackers fleeing into the wilderness. Elisa let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Stand down. Let's get the wounded to medical and assess the damage." As the dust settled, Elisa approached Zara, her gratitude evident. "You saved us again." "I don't know how to thank you." Zara nodded solemnly. "The creatures are connected to this land in ways you don't understand. They react to certain frequencies and energies. We have learned to use this to calm them." Elisa marveled at the revelation. "We need to learn more from you, Zara. Our survival depends on it." Zara smiled faintly. "We are willing to teach, but you must be willing to learn." The battle had taken its toll, but the colony had survived. Elisa knew that they owed their lives to Zara and her people. She resolved to deepen their cooperation and understanding, realizing that the key to their survival lay in embracing the knowledge and wisdom of Vetra's native inhabitants. As the colony began to rebuild and tend to the wounded, Elisa felt a renewed sense of purpose. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they were not alone. Together, humans and natives could forge a new path forward, one built on trust, cooperation, and mutual respect. The aftermath of the second attack left the colony in a state of cautious relief. While the threat had been repelled, the intensity and coordination of the attack were troubling. Elisa knew they needed to strengthen their defenses further and deepen their alliance with Zara's people. One evening, as Elisa was reviewing the day's progress in her quarters, Mark knocked on her door. His face was etched with concern. "We found something," he said, handing her a data pad. "You need to see this." Elisa took the pad and scanned the information. It was a communication log, filled with encrypted messages. "What is this?" Mark sighed. "Ethan's been intercepting and decoding communications. These messages, they're from someone within the colony. It seems they've been in contact with an unknown entity, providing information and receiving instructions." Elisa felt a cold wave of dread. "You mean there's another saboteur?" "More than that," Mark replied. "This isn't just sabotage. It's coordination. The attacks, the sabotage, they've all been orchestrated by someone here." Elisa's mind raced. "We need to confront Ethan. He might know more." They found Ethan in the engineering bay, surrounded by machinery and monitors. He looked up as they approached, his expression wary. "What's this about?" Elisa handed him the data pad. "Explain this." Ethan scanned the log, his face darkening. "I've been suspicious for a while. Someone's been feeding information to our enemies, coordinating the attacks. Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Mark demanded. Ethan met his gaze evenly. "I wasn't sure who I could trust. I needed to be certain." Elisa felt a mixture of anger and frustration. "We could have prevented so much damage if you had shared this earlier." Ethan's expression softened slightly. "I know. But we can still use this information to stop them. We need to find out who's behind this and why." They worked through the night, decrypting more messages and tracing their origins. It was painstaking work, but finally, a pattern began to emerge. The messages pointed to a small group of colonists who had been working together, communicating secretly. Elisa felt a pang of betrayal as she recognized some of the names. "These are good people. Why would they do this?" Ethan leaned back, his expression grim. "We need to confront them and find out." The next day, Elisa, Mark, and Ethan gathered the suspects in a secure room. The atmosphere was tense, the air heavy with suspicion and fear. Elisa began, her voice steady but firm. "We've discovered evidence of communication with an unknown entity. These messages have coordinated attacks and sabotage against our colony. We need to know why. One of the suspects, a young technician named Alex, shifted nervously. I didn't have a choice, he said, his voice shaking. They contacted me months ago, threatening my family back on Earth. I had to do what they said. Elisa's heart sank. Who contacted you? Who are they? Alex shook his head. I don't know. The messages were always anonymous, encrypted. They provided detailed instructions and threatened to harm my family if I didn't comply. Another suspect, Sarah, nodded in agreement. They promised to get us off this planet, to save us. I thought I was helping. Elisa exchanged a look with Mark and Ethan. This was bigger than they had anticipated. We need to find out who these people are and what they want. If they can reach us here, they could be a threat to the entire colony. Ethan stepped forward. We need to set a trap. Let them think we're still complying, but use the information to our advantage. Find out who's behind this and stop them. Elisa nodded. Agreed. But we need to be careful. If they suspect anything, they could retaliate. The plan was set in motion. They continued to decrypt messages, feeding false information to the unknown entity while gathering intelligence. It was a delicate game of cat and mouse, fraught with danger. As days turned into weeks, the tension within the colony remained high. Trust was fragile, and the sense of betrayal lingered. But Elisa knew they were making progress. Each decrypted message brought them closer to uncovering the truth. One evening, as Elisa was walking the perimeter, she encountered Zara. The native leader had become a trusted ally, and Elisa valued her insights. You seem troubled, Zara observed. Elisa nodded. We've discovered a deeper threat within our own ranks. Someone's been coordinating attacks against us. Zara's expression was thoughtful. Your people are divided. Unity is your greatest strength, but also your greatest challenge. Elisa sighed. I know. We're working to root out the cause, but it's difficult. Trust is hard to rebuild. Zara placed a hand on her shoulder. Remember, you are not alone. We are here to help. Together, we are stronger. Elisa felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you, Zara. Your support means more than you know. As they stood together, watching the sunset over the alien landscape, Elisa felt a renewed sense of determination. They would uncover the truth, stop the saboteurs, and secure the future of the colony. No matter the cost. The weeks following the discovery of the saboteurs were a tense waiting game. Elisa, Mark, and Ethan meticulously planned their next steps, using the intercepted communications to lay a trap for the unknown entity. The colony was on high alert, defenses fortified, and every colonist was prepared for what might come. It was just before dawn when the alarms blared once more. This time, Elisa was ready. She was already in the control center, monitoring the feeds when the sensors picked up a massive movement heading straight for the colony. This was it, the final assault. Everyone to your stations, Elisa commanded over the colony-wide comms. This is not a drill. Prepare for immediate engagement. Mark and his security team were already mobilizing, their faces set in grim determination. Ethan was at the engineering bay, coordinating the power distribution to ensure the turrets and barriers were fully operational. The creatures attacked with a ferocity unmatched by previous encounters. They seemed to have learned from their past failures, coordinating their strikes with alarming precision. Elisa's heart pounded as she watched the perimeter defenses strain under the relentless assault. Ethan, we need more power to the northern turrets, she called into her communicator. I'm on it, Ethan replied, his voice steady despite the chaos. As the battle raged, Elisa noticed a disturbing pattern. The creatures were focusing their attacks on specific points, almost as if they were being directed. Her mind flashed back to the intercepted messages and the suspected saboteurs within the colony. We've got a breach in the east sector. Mark's voice crackled through the comms. We need reinforcements now. Elisa quickly dispatched additional forces to the east, but her thoughts were racing. Someone was still feeding information to the enemy. She needed to find them, and fast. Leaving the control center under the watchful eye of her second-in-command, Elisa made her way to the east sector. The scene was chaotic, with colonists and security personnel fighting desperately to hold the line. Amidst the chaos, she spotted a familiar face, Paul, the coerced saboteur. "Paul," she shouted over the noise. "Who else was involved? We need to stop this now." Paul, his face a mask of guilt and fear, pointed to a small group huddled near a damaged generator. "They're there. They've been communicating with the enemy, directing the attacks." Elisa's blood ran cold. She moved swiftly towards the group, her heart pounding. As she approached, one of them, a man named Carl, spun around, his eyes wide with panic. "Elisa, I can explain," he stammered. "No time for explanations," she snapped. "Shut it down. Now." Carl hesitated, then nodded, his face pale. He quickly began dismantling the makeshift communication device they had been using to relay information. Elisa could see the fear in his eyes, fear of both her and their unseen enemy. "Mark, the communication relay is in the east sector. We're shutting it down now," Elisa reported through the comms. "Copy that," Mark replied. "We're holding the line, but we need those reinforcements." Elisa turned to Carl and the others. "You've made a terrible mistake, but we can still salvage this. Help us defend the colony, and maybe you can start to make amends." With the communication relay disabled, the coordination of the creature's attacks began to falter. The tide of battle slowly turned in the colonists' favor. The turrets and defenses, bolstered by Ethan's efforts, held strong. Zara and her people arrived, their rhythmic chanting once again disrupting the creature's coordination. The combined human and native defenses finally broke the assault, driving the creatures back into the wilderness. The colony was battered and bruised, but they had survived. As the dust settled, Elisa stood with Mark and Ethan, surveying the aftermath. "We did it," Mark said, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Elisa nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "This was too close. We need to ensure it never happens again." Ethan approached, his usual defiance replaced with respect. "We've got a lot of work to do, but I think we've proven we can handle it." Elisa turned to the colonists, many of whom were tending to the wounded or repairing the damage. "We survived because we stood together. We cannot let fear divide us again." The saboteurs were taken into custody, their fate to be decided by the colony's council. Elisa knew there would be hard decisions ahead, but for now, they had won a crucial victory. As the first light of dawn broke over Vetra, casting a hopeful glow across the battered colony, Elisa felt a renewed sense of determination. They had faced their darkest hour and emerged stronger. Now, they could truly begin to build a future on this alien world. The final assault had left the colony scarred but resolute. The saboteurs had been apprehended, and the threat from the native creatures was temporarily quelled. Yet, Elisa knew the true challenge lay in what came next, rebuilding trust and fortifying their defenses for the future. Elisa stood in the central dome, addressing the gathered colonists. "We have faced incredible challenges, but we have also shown remarkable resilience. Today, we begin the process of rebuilding, not just our colony, but our trust in each other." The colonists nodded, their expressions a mix of weariness and determination. Among them, Zara stood with her people, a symbol of their fragile but growing alliance. Over the next few weeks, the colony worked tirelessly. Repairs were made, new defense systems were installed, and the security protocols were overhauled. Ethan took the lead in enhancing the power grid and reinforcing the barriers, his commitment evident in every action. "These new systems will be more efficient and harder to sabotage," Ethan explained during a meeting with Elisa and Mark. "We're integrating some of the native technology Zara shared with us. It's a game changer." Elisa was impressed by the progress. "Good work, Ethan. We need to ensure we're prepared for any future threats." Amidst the rebuilding efforts, Elisa and Zara continued to strengthen their alliance. They organized joint patrols and shared knowledge, fostering a deeper understanding between their peoples. Zara's insights into the native creatures and the environment proved invaluable. One evening, Elisa and Zara walked along the colony's perimeter, discussing their next steps. "Your people have shown great resilience," Zara said. "But unity will be the key to your survival." Elisa nodded. "We've learned that the hard way. But we're committed to building a future here, together." As they walked, Elisa's communicator buzzed with an urgent message from Mark. "Elisa, we've intercepted a new transmission. It's from the unknown entity that coerced Paul and the others." Elisa's heart skipped a beat. "Patch it through to the control center." "I'm on my way." In the control center, Elisa, Mark, and Ethan listened to the intercepted transmission. The message was cryptic but clear: Phase 1 is complete. Prepare for the next operation. Mark frowned. "They're planning something else. We need to find out who they are and stop them." Ethan leaned forward. "We should use the information we've gathered to trace the origin of these messages. It's time to take the fight to them." Elisa agreed. "We need to act quickly. If we can identify and neutralize this threat, we can secure our colony's future." The following days were a blur of intense activity. Using the intercepted messages and Zara's knowledge of the planet, they tracked the signals to a remote location deep in the wilderness. It was a risky operation, but Elisa knew it was their best chance to end the threat once and for all. Leading a team of elite security personnel, Elisa ventured into the alien landscape. The journey was arduous, with treacherous terrain and unpredictable weather. Yet, their resolve never wavered. They finally reached the source of the transmissions, a hidden base, equipped with advanced technology. The unknown entity had established a foothold on Vetra, using it to coordinate the attacks and manipulate the saboteurs. Elisa's team moved swiftly, infiltrating the base and neutralizing the guards. As they reached the command center, they encountered the mastermind behind the operations, a figure shrouded in shadows, clearly not of human origin. "You've come far," the figure hissed. "But you are too late. The operation is already in motion." Elisa stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "We will not let you destroy our colony. Surrender now." A tense standoff ensued, but Elisa's team managed to overpower the enemy. With the base secured, they began to dismantle the transmission equipment and gather intelligence. Back at the colony, the news of the successful operation brought a wave of relief. The immediate threat had been eliminated, but Elisa knew they could never let their guard down. In the days that followed, the colony continued to rebuild and strengthen. The bonds between the colonists and Zara's people grew stronger, their alliance a beacon of hope in the hostile world of Vetra. Elisa stood on the observation deck, watching the triple moons rise over the horizon. The challenges they had faced were immense, but they had proven that with unity and determination, they could overcome anything. As the colony settled into a new rhythm, Elisa felt a sense of peace. They had secured their future on Vetra, not just through technology and defenses, but through trust and cooperation. "To the future," she whispered, a smile touching her lips. Together. The colony had entered a new era of cautious optimism. The immediate threats had been neutralized, and the colonists had a renewed sense of purpose. Elisa stood in the central dome, looking out at the bustling activity around her. The colony was thriving, despite the challenges they had faced. "Elisa," Mark called out, approaching her with a data pad in hand. "We've completed the integration of the new defense systems. Everything is up and running smoothly." Elisa smiled. "That's excellent news, Mark. It's been a long road, but we're finally in a stable position." Mark nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We've come a long way. The cooperation with Zara's people has made a huge difference. It feels like we're not just surviving, but starting to build something lasting." Elisa agreed. The relationship with Zara and her people had grown into a true partnership. Regular joint patrols and shared technology had strengthened both communities. There was a sense of mutual respect and understanding that had once seemed impossible. Elisa made her way to the newly constructed research facility, where Lena was busy cataloging the native flora and fauna. "Lena, how are the new samples coming along?" Lena looked up, her eyes bright with excitement. "We've discovered several plants with incredible medicinal properties. This could revolutionize our healthcare here. And Zara's people have been invaluable in helping us understand the ecosystem." Elisa felt a surge of pride. "Your work is crucial, Lena. Keep it up. The more we understand Vetra, the better we can adapt and thrive." As Elisa continued her rounds, she saw Ethan overseeing the final touches on the power grid enhancements. Despite their rocky start, he had proven to be a vital asset to the colony's survival. "Ethan," she said, joining him. "The new power systems look impressive." Ethan gave a rare smile. "We've integrated native technology in ways that increase efficiency and resilience. It's a good balance between our needs and respecting this planet's resources." Elisa nodded. "You've done great work. This colony wouldn't be where it is without your efforts." Ethan's smile widened slightly. "We've all had to adapt. It's good to see everything coming together." The day ended with a communal gathering in the central dome. Colonists and natives mingled, sharing food and stories. The atmosphere was one of camaraderie and hope. Elisa took the stage, the hum of conversations quieting as she began to speak. "We have faced many challenges since arriving on Vetra. But through resilience, cooperation, and trust, we have built a community that can endure anything. We've shown that by working together, we can overcome any obstacle." She paused, looking out at the faces of those who had become her family. "Our journey is far from over. We will continue to face challenges. But I have no doubt that we will meet them with the same determination and unity that has brought us this far." The crowd erupted in applause, the sense of unity palpable. As the evening wore on, Elisa found herself standing at the edge of the gathering, watching the stars twinkle in the alien sky. Zara joined her, the two of them sharing a moment of quiet reflection. "You have done well," Zara said, her voice soft. "Your people are strong and resilient." Elisa smiled. "We've learned a lot from you and your people. Together, we've made this colony more than just a place to survive. It's becoming a home." Zara nodded. "Home is more than just a place. It's the connections we make and the strength we find in each other." As the night deepened, Elisa felt a profound sense of peace. They had built something remarkable on Vetra, a beacon of hope in a vast, uncertain universe. The challenges ahead were inevitable, but so was their ability to face them together. In the distance, the triple moons of Vetra rose, casting a gentle light over the colony. Elisa looked at Zara, and they shared a knowing smile. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. To the future, Elisa whispered, the words a promise and a hope. Together.